Apparently, the tryptophan from yesterday's turkey in the Domowitch household was stronger than in other places. We have not yet heard from our friend Paul Domowitch. I texted him yesterday just to make sure he was good to go, and he gave me the thumbs up, but we haven't heard from Domo yet.
Post Thanksgiving, you're right. Tryptophan, maybe overslept. Who knows? Hopefully we get Domo though.
And that
It says that his stat package is up at JAKIBSports.com. So everybody should take a look at that. Does a tremendous job at that. Hopefully we'll get to talk to him about it. But yeah, some interesting nuggets as there usually are when he puts those things together.
Wasn't an issue for me yesterday because didn't have turkey. We had prime rib instead, which my wife does. About every fifth year, she goes, "Yeah, we're skipping turkey this year. We're gonna have beef." So,
all right, mixing it up. I like it. I'm a traditional turkey guy. I want turkey on Thanksgiving, but
like I said,
appreciate
4 out of 5 is good by me. If we did beef every year, I would go, wait a minute, this is Thanksgiving. You got to have turkey on Thanksgiving. But my wife likes to deviate every once in a while. And hey, I did not off during the San Francisco game because of it. I was wide awake because.
All right. Yeah, that helps.
No tryptophan for yours truly. Hopefully we trip Damo through the fan before the show is over and done with. And like I said, a little later, we're going to have Sal Capaccio on. He is both a host and the sideline reporter, the Howard Eskin equivalent for the Bills radio network. Only I've had Sal on as a guest before, and I'll tell you he's not Howard Eskin, but that's okay. Sal will join us.
Is that good or bad? Is that good or bad? That
can be both. We will let our streamers decide for themselves. Well, he's a Buffalo guy, so that's not going to go well for Sal. I get that here on Birds 365. But he's a good dude, and he's a good reporter, and he does know the Bills inside out. And they're an interesting team coming to town, Johnny Mac. They on defense, they're big playish. They get a lot of sacks. They cause a lot of turnovers. But they can get beat for big plays, too. They're kind of like the little girl with the curl. When they're good, they're very good. When they're bad, watch out, look out below. So that will be an interesting matchup for the Eagles come Sunday when they take on the Buffalo Bills. All right, I see in our waiting window.
He got through the tryptophan. He's there. He's there. There he is.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, my mind has been clouded by the tryptophan.
Yeah. That's what we were giving you a half pass because of it. Yes. Yeah. Good to have you on, Domo. And that was a quick change throwing on the Andy Reid wear to be ready.
I sleep with it on. So
it's, just a quick change and pull it on tight and you look good. Yeah. John and I talked about before we got you up, the 49ers and the Cowboys both looking very good. Lions going down, major plus. Now no one within 2 games of the Philadelphia Eagles as of right now, but the 2 afternoon and night games both also had Eagle implications with the Cowboys and the 49ers playing. Who are you more impressed by yesterday, Dallas or San Francisco?
San Francisco. I mean, they just if I'm the Cowboys, well, if I'm the Eagles, nobody scares you, but I mean, they're the team that I really truly believe is their biggest threat to getting to the Super Bowl. They just are starting to look. I thought after those 3 losses that maybe they were vulnerable and but then they turned it around and they're healthy again and they're clicking everywhere. Yeah. And that defense, wow! I mean, that's going to be a heck of a matchup watching them against the Eagles offense in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I said the same thing, but I was more wowed. Not that the defense was bad, but I was more wowed by the offense. And, Jody deserves credit. He's the Brock Purdy guy. But when they have he's a very quick processor. So for Kyle's offense, he's a perfect fit. And when they have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle at the same time, it's like your head is swimming. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And Kyle's a great play caller, and Trent Williams. The one concern I have is, although the other 4 offensive linemen, that's maybe where the Eagles get them because they have the great defensive front. The 49ers offensive line is Trent Williams. Aaron Banks is pretty good. He's back. But say you have two, and then it's three sort of just guys. So that might be the one part of the equation where the Eagles can take advantage of. But boy, those playmakers, and the fact that they could put McCaffrey and Debo Samuel, they're like mirrored. They could put one in the backfield, one at receiver, vice versa. I don't know. Sean Desai, good luck with that, man. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, if this was last year, the way they played, running, jumping out to fast starts, making teams play catch up, it would have helped them a lot against San Francisco, because it would, if you jump on them, it kind of restricts what they can do. I mean, the run doesn't scare you as much, the play action doesn't scare you as much. But that's not what the Eagles are doing this year. I mean, they've got a +6, I think, first half point differential compared to last year when it was +121 for the year.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that's what they got to do. That's what they got to do in a couple of weeks. They've got to jump on these guys. If they're playing from behind, forget it. I mean, it'll be over just like it was, yesterday, in a quarter or two.
Yeah, what happened to the Eagles dominating the second quarter? That was like written in stone last year. The Eagles going to crush you. You better have a good first quarter opposition, because the Eagles going to crush you in the second quarter. They crush everybody in the second quarter. Hasn't been exactly the same this year, but they are 9-1. Again, got to go back to the fact that
remember they're pretty good too. I don't want to downplay the Eagles, but everything's about time and place, right? And who's playing the best when we hit the playoffs, that's going to factor into it. Injuries is going to factor into it, as it always does.
Mm-hmm.
But you took a snapshot today, Damo. Who's the best team in the NFC?
Right now, today, well, still the Eagles, because of the record, because as much as, six of their 9 wins by 7 points or less, but they're still finding a way to win. So, it's hard to put San Francisco number 1 when a team's lost 3 in a row at one point, even if it was injured. That said, right now, if you were asking me who's going to the Super Bowl, I would probably say San Francisco.
Wow. I'll wait till after that game against these two teams before making that decision.
So will I. But I mean, if you're asking me right now.
Yeah, right now. And, there's some recency bias because we just saw them dominate Seattle. They're really impressive. They're really talented. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl last year. They're a really talented team. But I do like the Eagles coaching better.
Yeah.
I do. To me, there's a difference. I think Kyle Shanahan is the best play schemer in the NFL, but I don't think he's a great head coach. I think he makes a lot of game management mistakes, and that's one of the things I was most impressed about Nick Sirianni. He was screwing up some game management stuff, and he said, "You know what? This job is too big to get bogged down in the play calling." And I think that's one of his biggest strengths. So that factors into it. I do want to talk about the coordinators with you, Damo, because we kind of saw it, and the Eagles offense struggled. There was this weird, 9-1, as you mentioned. There's a lot of Brian Johnson angst I've sensed, and they both got questioned about it. Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, when the Eagles got back from Kansas City. Why are so many people hand-wringing about Brian Johnson?
You know what? You just look down through the years, guys. I mean, the fan base here, they just seem to have this thing about coordinators. That's where they go to when they're finding fault with this team. It seems to rest there. They never put the blame on players for things. It's always the play calling. It's always the coordinators. That's all I can figure, because both have done a really good job. I think Brian Johnson maybe felt his way a little bit early on as far as getting on the same page play calling wise with his quarterback, despite the fact that they've known each other since birth. But I thought he called a terrific game on Monday night. Using using 4 wide receivers, using 2 running backs. I mean, I just thought he, I mean, I don't have the same problems with Brian or Desai that other people seem to have.
But let me ask you this, because I think they're both. If you got to go thumbs up, thumbs down, passing grade, replacing 2 very good coordinators, they both get a thumbs up for me. But if you pitted them one against another and say who has done the better job, the new OC and the new DC, how would you rank them?
Well, that's tough, Jody, from the fact that, Desai's working with less talent.
Right.
He's the one that's had to figure out how to fill holes and move people around and make up for people that got hurt. Brian Johnson's had more talent, and probably they've underachieved. So I guess from that standpoint, you would say Desai has done a better job because of the underachieve factor with the offense. But yeah, so I mean,
I do. I grade on a curve. I readily admit I'm grading on a curve. Jordan Desai had heavier lifting to do. He had more guys to replace, turnover. Johnson was left a pretty full deck from what Shane Steichen had when he walked to Indianapolis. So grading on the curve, I think Desai definitely has been better. They're both fine. They're both passing grades for me. I'm not coming down on either one of them, but I think Desai has done the better job of the 2.
Yeah.
If one of them was going to be one and done, and if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, they both might be one and done. But if you had to pick one, I'm going Brian Johnson. Part of that is just because NFL teams are more likely to hire an offensive mind, so that it shifts in his direction to begin with. But I don't think he's going to be here long. So people, if they are hand wringing, I don't think you have that much to worry about, because you're going to be hand wringing about another coordinator. I truly believe he's going to be a head coach, if not next year, very, very quickly in the NFL. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere this upcoming year. No, we still got football left to play and reserve the right to make that prediction when the season's over and done with, or at least when we get close to the end of the season, get into playoffs, because that's when teams start firing their coaches and names start to be bandied about. I don't think Brian Johnson's in this particular spin cycle a guy that teams will be talking about hiring. All right, we can't leave our boy Howie out of this. We know this time of the year he's got to kind of sit on his hands. He's not nearly as involved. Trade deadlines come and gone. However, a guy did become available this week. A guy that Sirianni knows because he was in Indy when the coach was there. Shaq Leonard, released by the Colts. He's had many an injury. He was at one time one of the best linebackers in the NFL, period. One of the top 5 linebackers. He's not that anymore, but he certainly would provide depth to the Eagles. He did pass through waivers, thought there was an outside chance somebody would claim him. They would owe him $6 million for the rest of the year. Didn't happen. So he is now a free agent, can land anywhere. How aggressive is Howie Roseman going after Shaq Leonard, Domo?
Well, I mean, I think the important part is if he's healthy, you go after him real aggressively. But that's the big question. How's his back? Dallas is interested in him, but the same thing that, they lost Van Der Esch. It's all about your comfort level with his injury situation. I mean, signing him and bringing him in, and, then he ends up, playing 5 snaps and is on the injury list, doesn't help you. So, but yeah, I mean, right now you're shoring up everything if you can. I mean, you're looking at, the home stretch here, the playoffs. If you got a weakness and there's somebody out there that can help you, especially, I don't know what Leonard commands right now. Very, very little, probably, since has been hurt. And so, I mean, I would go after him, assuming you feel good that your doctors have told you that this guy's okay. He can hold up. He'll play. Then, certainly they can use another linebacker.
Yeah. And it seems like, and often in these situations, it's always, contenders sort of battling against each other. 49ers and Eagles were both kicking the tires on Jalen Johnson in Chicago. Probably more so to keep him away from the other. This could be the same thing with the Cowboys, as you mentioned, with the Eagles. I do want to get back to your stat package. You mentioned it a little bit, Damo, about the personnel groupings and the shift. From last year, they played without Dallas Goedert. A significant period of time, 5 games. They persevered. Easier schedule at that point, certainly. But it was interesting because they used more 11 personnel when Goddard was out than when he was healthy. Because, you know, it makes some sense because they had 2 tight ends. Stoll is the blocker. Goddard, you get him outside because Stoll's ability. And they didn't have that when he left. This time they did a little bit more different things. And you mentioned the 4 wide receivers, the pony formation, the 2 tight ends, Devontae Smith lining up in the backfield, which I love. I see other teams do that. The McVay tree teams do that all the time. Everybody has trouble finding those receivers in the backfield. Eagles do that because it was Andy Reid and the Chiefs, or are we going to see more of that?
I think we're going to see more of that. You know, I mean, when they got DeAndre Swift, I think it opened up their mind to a lot of things they could do with him. I mean, as Nick pointed out in his press conference on Wednesday, you know, this is a guy you can line up anywhere. You can do that with Gainwell. So, I mean, you know, they've been in those 2 wide receiver, 21 personnel personnel groupings that they've used. They've had Scott line up in the backfield. And then on that 35-yard jet sweep that Swift ran, he started out on the right side out wide, and they put him in motion, and you know, it ended up being a huge play. So I think we're going to see more of that. They've been very, you know, they used it against the Jets a few times. They used it against the Cowboys a few times, and it was very successful in both games. And then obviously it was successful on Monday night. I think, you know, you can throw out of it, you can run out of it. And, you know, and you mentioned using Devontae, lining him up in the backfield. I mean, maybe we'll see him get
I don't know if I want to see that. I don't know if I want to see the handoff to Devontae. I don't want to kill him.
You could put put him in motion. You know, get
maybe
him
a jet sweep. Maybe a jet sweep. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I think they're trying to throw. They're being very creative right now. I like that. I think part of the 4 wide receiver thing on Monday night had to do with Calcaterra going down early on. I mean, maybe they wouldn't have used it as much, but they were very effective with it. I think I pointed out in the column that Jalen completed, I think, 7 of 8 passes out of that 10 personnel package. So, yeah, I like a team that just tries to keep confusing the the defense. I mean, what you see a lot of times, they get very clever in their 15-play scripted package early on. You know, they'll play like 6 different personnel groupings, and then after that, they go whatever it was they did. But you know,
after that, they go 16 bubble screens instead of personnel.
Now that was interesting. I mean, I think they ran 5 screens in a matter of 2 possessions in the fourth quarter. The first couple.
Now, I did talk to Nick about that a little bit, and well, Jody knows I can't stand bubble screens, outside bubble screens. I just it's a blight. It's aesthetically disgusting. But they did set it up with they set it up, and then it went to the inside screen to Swift, which worked. And I think part of the reason was because they set it up with the outside screen. So there was some method to the madness, but boy, man. Ooh,
the middle screen to Swift was beautifully executed.
Beauty.
Yeah. It was a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
All right, Damo, you also did point out that Jalen Hurts rushed 5 times for first downs in a game against Kansas City. That's a big part of that victory was Jalen's ability to make a play with his legs, including the 10-yard touchdown romp. The tush push is the tush push. They're just stopping it at it. They do it when they need it, and no one can stop it. But Jalen did make a couple plays with his legs. How much of an effect did that have, in your opinion, on DeAndre Swift having his best game in over a month?
we've talked about this before, Jody, about, what effect that had on the running game when he couldn't run. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely benefits DeAndre because it opens things up. You got to account for him. I still think teams right now are daring him to do that, but when you can run a draw like that and come as clean as he did into the end zone, it's going to give Buffalo.
Yeah, go ahead and dare me, and I go in untouched from 10 yards. Thank you very much for daring me.
And when Jason Kelce, some of the blocks in front of him was, it's just, again, watching that kind of blocking is really fun to watch. But yeah, it definitely helps Swift.
The blitz was interesting to me, Damo, because it was funny because on our post-game show, Seth had indicated that they blitzed a lot, and I was like, I don't think so. It seemed pretty normal. And turns out, from the eye test, they actually blitz less than they typically do. As you mentioned, 22.7%, 23.2% is their typical blitz rate. So right on their average. But what they did do when they did blitz, and I think it fooled some people, they usually brought more. But when the Eagles blitz, it's typically 5 men. That's it. Bang, nothing. There's no zero. There's no nothing. But they brought more against Patrick Mahomes. Successful or not?
Well, yeah, the zero blitz they ran, it ended up with a 17-yard completion to Watson, I think it was. But it was executed great. Reed Blankenship was right, in the quarterback's face. It just was. It was a Mahomes a pass that only a few quarterbacks in the league can make. He stood there and threw a beautiful pass to the sideline but they did a good job on the 6-man blitzes. Mahomes' numbers weren't very good. And it got him, it keeps a quarterback thinking. It keeps him on, even a quarterback like Mahomes. The more you can do to try and confuse them, even if it doesn't totally confuse them, gives them more to think about. So I'm going to be interested even to see. I think one of the things they wanted to do in this game with that blitz was put it on film to give Brock Purdy something to think about, to give Josh Allen something to think about, to give Dak something to think about next time they play him. And I think we'll see more of it because I thought they were fairly successful with it on Monday night, rushing 6 and even 7.
Damo, no, this is as a beat guy who's there every single day, you would certainly have the answer to this question. But since that's not your ballywick anymore, I'm going to ask you to speculate a little bit for me. We seen the last of Derek Barnett in an Eagle uniform?
Probably. Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah. I'm surprised it hasn't moved more quickly, to be honest. But we'll see how that shakes out. He hasn't they practiced yesterday, but and then gave the guys off to go home for Thanksgiving afterwards, but still out for personal reasons.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat are playing a lot of snaps. A lot of snaps. Nolan Smith hasn't been able to get more playing time, which
can Shaq Leonard play defensive end? Can you play him on the edge? Yeah. Pick him up, throw him into the defensive end rotation.
It's a little bit of a disappointment at this stage that Nolan hasn't gotten more reps. It looks like Patrick Johnson isn't even in the equation any longer. Can they finish this thing with those guys playing that many reps? They seem that Josh Sweat's there making big plays at the end of the game. Hassan Reddick has closed games. Brandon Graham can still close games, as we know. Is that enough? Do they need that fourth guy?
Yeah. The interesting guy in my mind is BG, Graham, because he hasn't played a whole lot of snaps. I think Monday night he played 25 snaps, which was about 32% of the snaps. But most of the season he's been around 25, 30. So he's, mean, I expected him to play a lot more this season. It's 2 years removed from the ACL. I mean, from the Achilles. He hasn't. He's been effective though when he's been in there, and I think he's the guy going forward that if you're going to have to, ease back on the number of snaps you've been given to your edge rushers, he'd be the guy that needs to play more. But another guy that's played a lot of snaps is Fletcher Cox.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
we've been saying that for years with Fletcher, but
yeah.
And now he plays less than he, did in his prime, obviously, because the Eagles are really deep at defensive tackle. Milton Williams, by the way, he might be having
hope Milt's good to go on.
Yeah,
Monday. We don't know
that. I don't know if he is going to be good to go. That's kind of the point. He's been really good this season, and I think a lot of people haven't noticed just how good Milton Williams has been. So that could be an issue against the Bills.
Yeah.
I mean, you want your good players on the field. That's what Jim Schwartz used to talk about. Domo. Every year they talk about limiting Fletcher's snaps, and then you're at the end of the game. You got to win the game. You want your best players on the field, and I feel like it's the same way with the ends now. And hopefully the Eagles are able to persevere through it, but it's a little bit of concern for me that those guys are playing so many reps at this stage.
Yeah, I'll be curious too to see if Desai starts mixing things up a little bit more, playing Milton Williams some outside. I mean, you can play Cox out there, but he's one of the guys that's playing a lot of snaps. So, I mean, there are ways to give Sweat and Reddick rest because you've got versatile tackles. I mean, you could do pretty much anything with Jalen Carter probably, or Jordan Davis. I mean, maybe they're holding back a little bit and they're going to show some looks, against when they play San Francisco and Dallas that nobody's seen before. Putting those guys on the edge. Who knows?
By the way, I forgot to mention, because you were there day one. How amazing is it that on Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field, Brandon Graham will become the longest tenured Eagle ever. His 189th game. Nobody has played in more games as an Eagle than Brandon Graham. Amazing. He was labeled a bust.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly was going to cut him for Travis Long, and then Travis Long tore his ACL. And here he is, 189 games. It is unbelievable, that story, and how he turned it around.
I mean, right from the start, they draft him, and everybody wants to know why they didn't take Jason Pierre-Paul or the safety that
Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
What's Earl doing these days? He working at a Target? Was he involved with?
He's a greeter. He's a greeter at Walmart.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Well, hopefully he had the holiday off yesterday. Last thing for me, Damo. Streamer alert. The guys are going to get mad because I'm going to say something that's questionable about the Eagles, and they always do when I say something that's questionable. I think this weekend against the Bills, the Eagles should have some fear of potential defensive dominant players who are former Eagles. Linval Joseph helping out in the middle of that defense. How he didn't go down the mercenary road for him again this year when he came in and helped them get to the Super Bowl last year. Tongue somewhat implanted in cheek on that one. But Rasul Douglas, who for weeks I was saying leading up to the trade deadline is somebody the Eagles should have interest in. They could use some help in the slot. Rasul has played 3 games for the Bills. 3. He's got 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. The entire Eagles secondary doesn't have much more than that, and they played 11 games. And Rasul has got his hands on the ball 4 different times in 3 games. And, yeah, I think he'll come in here and do a nice job for the Bills. How upset will Eagle fans be if 2 former Eagles on the defensive side of the ball help the Bills come in and pull an upset in Philadelphia?
I would imagine they'd be very upset, Jody. But, Rasul Douglas has fashioned a pretty good career for himself after he left Philadelphia. But, I mean, my personal feeling is that Sunday the Eagles offense really is going to get on track. I mean, the Bills defense, with all the injuries they've suffered this year, is not in good shape. And I think they can be exploited both on the ground and through the air. And I think this is the game the Eagles play a complete offensive game.
Ooh.
All right. But by the way, I always thought, and Jody's been on the Rasul kick, but I always thought if Rasul could have lasted and gotten into the Fangio scheme, I think that's a perfect fit for him. He's a pure zone corner. I think that would have been great for him, but couldn't do it, and it's worked out elsewhere. He's a good player in Green Bay, good player in Buffalo. Took him a while. He was in a bunch of spots.
I was suggesting he would be a nice return fit. What kind of defense they playing these days, Johnny May?
Yeah, unfortunately.
The Fangio defense, which
I think he'd be a great fit.
Rasul is a perfect fit for. And the Eagles weren't.
I do think he's a great fit, but and people are down on James Bradbury this year. I still think James Bradbury's a better fit, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Well, the funny thing about Rasul is he's playing a lot of press. And when he was here, I mean, you couldn't.
When he was here, yeah.
When get him to stand up, line up closer than 15 yards away from the guy.
Well, he's his own. He's his own guy. He's got good ball skills. He's always had good ball skills. Always. Even when he was here, but it didn't work.
All right, Dama. So I'm reading between the lines and hearing you're saying the Eagles are certainly putting up a 30 spot. 30 what against this beaten up, broken down Bills defense?
I'm going to go 30-20. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go 34-20. I just, the Bills are 1-3 on the road this year. They're just so. I mean, Josh Allen is up and down. He's thrown 12 picks already.
He's reckless.
I just, boy, and which is why the Bills will probably come in here and light things up. But because I said it's going to be 34-20, but that's the way I'm looking at it.
All right, Damo, a pleasure. Thanks for getting up and at least pulling the shirt on correctly. We thank you for that too.
I apologize for being late.
Not a problem, brother. We will talk to you next Friday.
Thanks,
Have a good week.
Have a good weekend.
Paul Domowitch, 33rdteam.com, and his stat pack on the JAKIB Sports.com website is phenomenal.
I got to check out the Buffalo injury report, Jody. I got to tell you, this Bills team remains talented. Obviously, they're not having the kind of year they want to have, but they have the 10th ranked defense of the NFL. The Eagles are 14 as a comparison. They have the 6th ranked offense. The Eagles are 9th. I mean, they are talented. It's just, I think Josh Allen is too reckless. But if they play their A game, they're still a dangerous team.
But they, like the Dallas Cowboys, are good at beating up on teams they're supposed to beat up on. Well, their plus minus buries the Eagles. And they got 5 losses. And their plus minus buries the Eagles. When they win, they roll it up on people. Like I said, kind of like the Cowboys, but the Eagles aren't the kind of team that you roll it up on. But I think their defense is a little underrated. They've had a couple of injuries, yes, but yesterday they only had one guy out in practice. Everyone else was either full practice or limited. And again, estimation, so you don't really know. But they actually are getting a little bit more healthy.
Well, I think he's talking more of Matt Milano, who's the very good linebacker.
Was a key miss, yes.
Yeah, done for the season. I think they lost somebody else.
Tre'Davious White, but they lost him like week 3. He's been out for a long period of time. Yeah. They are what they are since he went out, and he's going to be out for the season. So they've done a nice job replacing some of their injured players, like with an acquisition of Rasul Douglas, who was out there to be had, and they went and got him.
Ed Oliver's a good player too. He's a very disruptive player.
The Bills, I think the Bills are number 2 overall in the NFL in sacks. So yeah, they're going to get after Jalen Hurts, and this is coming off a game where Jalen was sacked 5 times against the Chiefs. All right, McDonald and McMullen, Mac and Mac Birds 365. Quick timeout. We'll come back in less than 15 minutes from now. Sal Capaccio, the sideline reporter for the Bills on their radio network.
Howard Eskin of the Bills.
I'm going to say that to Sal and see if he takes umbrage on it or if he smiles. Different type of person I was just mentioning. Sal Capaccio from the Bills Radio Network, and join us coming up soon here on Birds 365.